The message here is pretty simple. Wine industry is important to California, and it's very sensitive to climate change. The wine industry makes a significant contribution. This is from a study done on 2005 data, published in 2006. About a $50 billion contribution to the state of California, employs 300,000 people. The data here, I would suggest, understates because the industry has grown about 10% since 2005. I would also suggest that it's amplified somewhat by the importance to tourism. About 20 million people visit California, visit wineries. It's a significant part makes a significant contribution to the economy. Go to the next slide, thank you. The wine business, wine growing is a endeavor that is highly sensitive to climate. The maps here show reduction in viable wine grape production acreage that would occur in a most likely scenario of about a 3 to 7 degree change over the current decade. It would result in a significant reduction in viable productive area in the U.S. And a movement toward the coast, upward in elevation, and to the north. It would be a significant impact, particularly in California. What we've observed so far, just over the last 50 years, where we've observed about a 2.5 degree change, are a significant decline in the days below freezing, earlier last spring frost, later first fall frost, longer frost-free periods, and a significant change in the phenology trends ranging over. This is a study that was done looking at 46 different climate stations in 11 different wine regions, and it resulted in, on average, about a 6 to 20 day change in the phenology patterns. Honestly, to date, this has not been a bad thing. The challenge would be if it were to continue. This slide is actually kind of interesting. What I want to point you, if you look down the list there, you'll see Cabernet Sauvignon, about 3/4 of the way down, 2/3 of the way down. The green line is roughly where Napa is today in terms of average growing season. If we were to see another 2 or 3 degree movement in climate, you'd be where the red line is. Cabernet would not be optimal in Napa. Napa would start to take on some of the characteristics of the Central Valley. A significant part of the contribution of Napa is the quality of its Cabernet. That's the impact that it has for tourism. That's why people go to the wine country. This would be a really serious issue. We'd see warmer and longer growing seasons, warmer dormant periods. We would see some reduced frost damage, but it would really alter ripening profiles and phenology. It would have a serious impact.
And for those of us who are Pinot drinkers, would we see a similar situation in San Luis Obispo or the other areas that are?
I think the answer would be yes, Nancy, and the other it would have a serious impact up and down the coast, even more so. I think even more so in Southern California. So currently, we're seeing consistent maturity, riper flavors, higher yields. Over time, though, what happens is you get overripe flavors, you get underdevelopment of acids, you don't have the right pH values in the wines, you get real volatility in yields. It has a big impact on quality. So, impacts from warming, agriculture, crop yield changes in wine grape varietals is what would be needed. The other impacts are different types of weed invasions and particularly pests. The insect changes are dramatic with minor changes in temperature. And of course, we also would get heat waves that put stress. You'd wind up with real vulnerability to pest and quality of product. The other thing that will go along with climate change is precipitation changes. Water supply is already a critical issue, particularly on the North Coast. Anyone up and down the Russian River knows that this is a serious issue. It would lead to variability in crop yields, and of course, this would affect things other than the wine industry, but fire risk to rangeland, soil erosion, again, pests and diseases. Adaptation practices that we can do: larger catchments, developing reserves in terms of water management, metering, longer range planning. These are quite expensive, and they mean using productive land to build reservoirs. Hard thing to do. In terms of water management, we can do some changes on rootstock selection. We can do some cultivation practices that put more organic matter in the soil, dry farming, drip irrigation, and recycling of water, all of which we are doing. In our own vineyards, we are water irrigation on demand. We recycle all the water out of the winery today for irrigation. Higher temperatures will have issues with things that we can do: canopy shading, but that's expensive. Row orientation, which means replanting vineyards. There are some things we can do, we are doing now for pest management, integrated pest management, using natural pest predators, and this stresses the importance of polycultures versus monocultures, so embedding habitat within the vineyards and using cover crops. Other issues have to do with energy availability, which is another issue a little bit beyond climate control, but we've made the move to biodiesel in our vineyards and our wineries, for example, and solar power, and we're 100% green energy at the winery. Wrapping up, wine production is an important industry in California. It's climatically very sensitive. We have observed warming over the last 50 years. If we were to see a continuation just at the rate we've already seen, it would have a significant impact. Warming over the next 50 to 100 years would present numerous potential impacts that could really threaten the viability of a very important industry in California. Thank you for your time.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Chester.
Maybe before I leave, that was a great presentation in terms of the downside risk, and barely touching on what Mr. Thornhill and Parducci and actually a number of other wine companies have done, but I think Parducci's been in the forefront of virtually eliminating their carbon footprint and really doing remarkable things to also help do their part to head off the impacts that were just described. So I think it's important. He quite modestly only barely touched on those things. It's really important to acknowledge those, and I appreciate you giving him the opportunity to talk before I had to leave. Thank you.
One point I would make on that very quickly: we are the first carbon neutral winery in the U.S. We're 100% green energy. We recycle all the water out of the plant. I would tell you almost everything we've done has had a positive economic impact. In going to treeless papers, water-based inks, not using chlorinated cardboard, for example, we've actually reduced our packaging cost. A lot of our improvement in efficiency was done through a PG&E audit and taking their advice, doing the things that we needed to do there, and then bringing in the solar power, and we purchased wind energy. But those things have actually improved economically. We've saved money doing it. So a lot of this is about pretty straightforward thought process on efficiency, productivity. It works, and that's what we're trying to do.